Hey guys, how's it going? It's the end of the league, and I know my last video that I released, I said that Trickster Cold Snap build would be the last build I made, but I had a bit of an epiphany. I don't know what you want to call it. I decided I wanted to play one more final weird, memey garbage build, and it turned out to not be as garbage as I thought. It's still nothing special, but it certainly outperformed expectations. This is a Frostbomb Elementalist. The idea being that we stack as much cooldown reduction as possible, so really there's not that much in the game. We've got just about 20% here and just about 15% here on the boots and belt respectively. And then what I'm doing in order to help get around the fact that I can only throw out a Frostbomb still, even with that 1.88 every 1.88 seconds, is I've gone Avatar of Fire and a Cold to Fire skill gem for full fire conversion, and I'm scaling an Ignite off of the Frostbomb explosion with, you know, burning damage, fire damage, that sort of thing on the tree. I'm an Elementalist, which gives me my free proliferation, and I'm using Realm Ender, which is free level 5 Cold to Fire as well as +3 to Frostbomb, and some percent LE damage. Now, obviously, this is a staff. This build is never really meant to be too serious of a build, so I didn't really mind using a staff and, you know, not having access to a good movement skill in the first place, because I don't think with an active skill and a 1.8 second cooldown I'm going to be clearing very quickly to begin with. But it's actually turned out surprisingly fairly comfortable to play and really aesthetically pleasing. So I'm going to hop into a map. I can show you guys what I'm talking about real fast. I actually ran myself out of Underground Seas because that was like the most fun map to play this build with. But let's see what else we've got at our disposal. I can just hop into a Shaped Beach. Beach is a solid map, why not? And this build has been able to actually clear all the way up into like tier 12, 13, 14 maps. It does struggle a bit with Architects. The single target damage is certainly nothing too terribly impressive, but as you'll see, the clear is very satisfying. When you drop that Frostbomb under a pack, the Spell Cascade gives you the coverage you need to hit the entire pack, and then the Ignite proliferation just takes care of any stragglers out on the edges like that. It's actually quite enjoyable. And we are still also taking advantage of shocks from Elementalist. I'm using a Yoke of Suffering right now, which is making it so that all of my elemental damage can shock, which means that despite the fact that I'm going Avatar of Fire, shocking is still an option. And I've got a Light Poacher, which is just helping for a bit of supplementary clear as well. There's actually no support gems in that, though. It's just the base Light Poacher damage that's allowing me to catch stragglers now and again, because that's really like the most important thing with this build. Frostbomb's base damage and damage scaling is pretty ridiculous, which is why this even works in the first place. You have some of the highest base damage in the game, and Ignites scale primarily off of base damage, and then 200% effectiveness of added flat damage. So sort of like the Fire Trap build that I made, you just stack some Abyssal Jewels, stack a lot of flat added damage to spells. Turns out not too many people are highly valuing flat fire or flat cold dispels when it's with a two-handed weapon on your Abyss Jewel roll, so it's pretty cheap as well. And you end up with some really hefty, hard-hitting Ignites that prolif really well and actually give you a satisfying clear. As you can see, we're down to 20 monsters remain, so not too terrible of a clear, really. I'll go over the other decisions of the build real quick here. As I said, our weapon is a Realm Ender. Had to 6-link this myself because there weren't any 6-linked ones on the market, weirdly enough. And you do want to be putting your Frostbomb in here because then it's getting +3 gems, which increases the base damage even further. As you can see, Frostbomb's base damage at level 23 is, no, 24 is what that would be. 21 gem +3 levels from the item. It's pretty absurd. 1422 to 2133 is like twice that of most other skill gems. LE hit is the only other one that will like outstrip it. And that's really only if you're doing the LE hit conversion shenanigans, which of course is what you're doing if you're playing LE hit right now, because that's what LE hit's best at. But this is a much more ethical way of getting your ridiculously high base fire damage with Avatar Fire. It's if you want to play LE hit but have it be worse and harder to use. But, you know, also flashier looking. We've got Spell Cascade as one of our links. Swift Affliction, this causes the Ignite to do more damage, as well as causing the Frostbomb to pop faster, which is why we get such a quick explosion on that. Combustion support dealing with enemy fire resistance was a problem, and we also need to have really reliable chance to ignite because obviously we don't hit too often. So I actually have 100% chance to ignite, or maybe like 97%, like very close to that, so that I'm igniting with every cast. That's very important. Burning damage, we're scaling the ignite. Burning damage is 57% more burning damage, and some, yeah, it's very good. Pretty much a no-brainer here. And less duration, which again is just a more damage multiplier, which is great, as well as causing the explosions to go off a little bit quicker. Pretty important. In here we have our lightning warp, which is in a 5-link. There's also a portal in here linked to a bunch of these other things. So we've got less duration, swift affliction, arcane surge, lightning warp, and faster casting. It's a little expensive. I have run into some mana problems because I don't have that much mana on reserve, so spamming lightning warp is a problem right now. I'm going to be trying to fix that with a few small changes to the build here or there, maybe some mana regen on the tree if I gain another level or two. I am only level 88. We've got just some life and res gloves here, nothing fancy. As I said, both of these items have cooldown reduction. That's really the only way that we can make Frostbomb feel okay to play. So this is overall roughly 35. It's actually 33% cooldown reduction because I don't quite have perfect rolls on these two. But that's enough to bring Frostbomb to 1.88 seconds down from 2.5, which is very significant while you're clearing, trust me. Loreweave is a good chess piece. Yep, nothing too surprising about that. Yoke of Suffering, so we can still shock, which of course helps us take advantage of the fact that we're an Elementalist, as well as giving some increased damage for each type of element you have inflicted on the enemy. We only have up to 2 since we can't chill with this build, but still rather nice. Life and res, nothing fancy here. This has some flat cold damage to spells and attacks, a Shaper mod that's very powerful with Frostbomb because Frostbomb has 200% effectiveness of added damage, which is a little stupid. And then a Light Poacher. Light Poacher purely for the sockets. Those sockets allow me to get a lot of flat cold and a lot of flat fire to spells while wielding a two-handed weapon and otherwise. And if you look at the tree, there are a lot of Abyssal Jewels there as well. We've got some flat cold and flat fire dispels here, flat cold and flat fire dispels, flat cold and flat fire dispels. You're beginning to see a pattern, I hope. A little bit of flat chaos there, low flat cold. This is actually a pretty bad jewel, just very high life roll, that's why I have it. And if we go over the passive tree, I can briefly tell you what's what. We're starting with Witch. Spell damage does not scale our ignite, so we want to just come out through the int nodes. We pick up AoE wherever we can in order to help the Frostbomb's coverage, focusing on fire damage and burning damage nodes, so Holy Fire is a given. Breath of Flames is quite good now. I'm starting down the Heart of Flame route, even though we don't take advantage of the pen with ignites, because ignites cannot penetrate resistance. Still, each of these nodes is 15% increased fire damage, which is just a lot per individual node. It's very good. Over here, we've gone for Celestial Punishment, which was newly buffed going into this league, and gives effective non-damaging ailments, which will scale our shock from Elementalist, as well as 30% increased burning damage, as well as damage with hits against ignited enemies, though that's fairly minor because we are doing most of our damage as a dot. And then a little bit of shock, freeze, and ignite chance. We're already kind of capped on ignite by the time we get this, but the 5% shock is pretty nice, as we're definitely nowhere near capped on that, so shocking a little more often is quite strong. This is just some more life, some more AoE, and the rest of the tree is fairly basic. The Keystone Nodes that we got to pick up are Ellie Overload. It's not up that often because you don't really hit that often, but it's still worth 2 points. And Avatar of Fire, which is build enabling alongside the Cold to Fire that Realm Ender gives you. If you don't want to use the Realm Ender, you will need to work Cold to Fire into your support gems, or there's an entirely alternate way to ignite, which would be just using Crimburns and allowing your cold damage to ignite, and then you can potentially go Elemental Equilibrium, and that's an entirely different way to take the build. But since I wanted to play around with Realm Ender, we did end up going the Avatar of Fire route, but you know, there's very, very much room for another version of the build that goes Ele Equilibrium, and the Frostbomb hit will still do cold damage, and then the Ignite will get the benefit of that Ele Equilibrium. It sounds very powerful. I might toy around with it, but this is what we've gone with for now. So yeah, that's about it. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, and you want to catch some more of this build, I will be playing it for another day or two on my stream before the race starts. And then we're going to be starting off with the race, starting on the 4th. I'll be playing Solo Self-Found Hardcore, and I'll be pushing the Guardian ladder, so I hope to see you there. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.